Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of What Makes Gaming Great. I'm Grant Dillon and this is the Throwback community. In this video, we're continuing on with our journey through the Halo games, and we've reached a lot of people's favorite game in the series, Halo 2. If you haven't yet watched last week's episode covering Combat Evolved, I suggest you do that now because there's a lot of great info in there. If you're all ready to go, then let's get started.
You'll know what to do.
Yes, sir, Sergeant.
Thanks for the tank. He never gets me anything.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
We're going to start off with a little info about the multiplayer for Halo 2 before we jump into the campaign. This game's multiplayer is a staple in gaming as it helped to jumpstart Xbox Live. It provided a new experience for gamers and fixed a lot of the common problems that plagued online first-person shooters, such as adding in skill-based matchmaking. While the game still allowed for system link and split-screen multiplayer, it added a whole other facet to gaming with friends.
Lost the lead.
Wow, this is gonna suck if you're
Tied the lead.
Now, let's get into the campaign. The Halo 2 campaign starts with a little bit of time having passed since the end of CE. We begin on High Charity, the holy city of the Covenant. Here we see Commander Thel Vadami being tried by the High Council for his inability to protect one of the sacred rings, also known as Halo. Though Vadami insists that the Flood were to blame for his failure, the Council finds him guilty. He is then stripped of his rank and armor, being branded with the Mark of Shame. We then move to an orbital defense platform above Earth, where Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 and Sergeant Major Avery Johnson are attending a medal ceremony in their honor. Along with them, receiving a medal in place of her recently deceased father, Captain Jacob Keyes, is Commander Miranda Keyes. This televised medal ceremony is cut short, however, as the AI Cortana announces that there are several Covenant ships coming out of slipspace ready to lay siege to Earth. So, naturally, Chief and Johnson take their badass selves and strap up.
Defend this station.
Yes, sir. I need a weapon.
Right this way.
After defending the station, Chief finds that there's a Covenant bomb on board. So, he slaps a Return to Sender sticker on that bad boy and sends it right back at the Covenant fleet, destroying several ships in one of the coolest cutscenes in video game history. This takes the fight to Earth for a couple of missions, where the UNSC is able to hold off the Covenant forces. The Prophet of Regret then flees Earth in his capital ship through a slipspace jump, but not before Miranda Keyes is able to take her frigate, the Inamberclad, through the rupture right behind him. This brings our story back to Thel Vadami. He is given a chance to redeem himself in the eyes of the gods by becoming the Arbiter and dying a warrior's death for the Covenant. The Prophet of Truth sends his Arbiter to kill a heretic leader and his followers, who are claiming that the prophets have lied about the Great Journey, which is what the prophets say will take place when the Halo rings are fired, basically sending all who follow the Covenant to Nirvana. When the Arbiter confronts the heretic leader, he finds that the leader has been speaking with the monitor of the recently destroyed Halo ring, 343 Guilty Spark, referred to by the Covenant as the Oracle. Before the Arbiter can find out why the heretic turned on the Covenant, fighting ensues and the heretic leader is struck down. Tartarus, leader of the Brutes, then extracts the Arbiter and 343 Guilty Spark and returns to High Charity. Back to the Master Chief and the crew of the Inamberclad. They come out of slipspace to discover another Halo ring. After landing on the ring, Commander Keyes and Sergeant Johnson take a team to find Halo's activation index before the Covenant can, while Chief goes on a mission to kill the Prophet of Regret. While he is successful, the Covenant then blasts Chief's location. He is forced to dive into the lake surrounding the structure he was in. Knocked unconscious by the force of the blast, Chief is then pulled deeper into the lake by the tentacle of a mysterious creature.
Not your grave. But you are welcome in it.
And jumping back to the Arbiter, the Hierarchs declare the Prophet of Regret's death to be the Elite's failure, and they are replaced as the protectors of the Prophets by the Brutes. They then send the Arbiter to retrieve Halo's activation index. Upon retrieving the index, the Arbiter encounters Commander Keyes and Sergeant Johnson. After besting them in combat, Tartarus arrives and takes the two humans as well as the index. He then reveals that the Hierarchs had ordered the execution of the elites, and he knocks the Arbiter unconscious down a hole in the index chamber. The Arbiter is saved from falling to his death, however, by the Gravemind. The Gravemind just happens to be the same creature that grabbed Chief, so it is at this point when Chief and the Arbiter's paths meet. It is then revealed that not only does the Gravemind control all the parasitic flood on the ring, but that it also likes to speak in rhyme, which is kind of fun. The Gravemind tells the Arbiter that the ring destroys life, not saves it. This prompts the Arbiter to, very reluctantly, team up with Chief to stop the ring from firing. The Gravemind then sends Chief to High Charity to retrieve the index, and the Arbiter to Halo's control room to stop Tartarus from firing the ring. So, as Chief, we fight through a civil war between the Brutes and the Elites on High Charity to try and get the index from the Prophet of Truth. Meanwhile, to add to the struggle, Flood controlled by the Gravemind crash onto High Charity and take it over. Truth is able to escape in a Forerunner ship called a Dreadnought, which is revealed to be headed to Earth. Chief is able to get on board just in time, however he is forced to leave Cortana behind in the flood-infested High Charity, and the ship jumps to slipspace. Meanwhile, the Arbiter is teamed up with some elites and Sergeant Johnson to fight to the control room. Once inside, they and 343 Guilty Spark try to convince Tartarus that the prophets have lied about the Great Journey. But, of course, he doesn't want to hear it. He starts the activation process, and a battle ensues. After a tough fight, the Arbiter kills Tartarus, and Miranda Keyes is able to deactivate Halo just in time. However, everyone's favorite lightbulb, 343 Guilty Spark, reveals that this has activated a failsafe that primes all the Halo rings for remote activation from a place called the Ark. We then jump to a cutscene of the Forerunner Dreadnought, with the Prophet of Truth and Master Chief aboard, arriving at Earth, where Chief says one of his most famous lines.
Isolate that signal. Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
Then, in an after-credits cutscene, we come back to the flood-infested High Charity, where the Gravemind is speaking to Cortana. He tells her that he's going to basically interrogate her and she will have to answer, to which Cortana responds,
All right. Shoot.
And that, my friends, is the end of Halo 2. One of my favorite things about this game is that it really introduces us to a common theme in the Halo universe of not just seeing things from the human perspective. We get to see an elite's perspective and even play as one, which is so cool. This is something that we end up seeing a lot more of in Halo, however, it's mostly in the books as of right now. You may have also noticed that some of the cutscenes shown in this video look maybe just a little bit better than they should for a game that released in 2004. Well, that's because Halo 2 was remastered by 343 Industries with the help of Blur Studios and Saber Interactive in 2014 as the 10-year anniversary celebration for the game and released with the Master Chief Collection. Needless to say, this remaster is absolutely immaculate and is one of the best out there.
They won't stand a chance. You have to stop him.
That brute has the index. And Miranda and Johnson. He can activate the ring.
If he does, I'll detonate in Emberclad's reactor just like we did the Autumns. The blast will destroy this city and the ring. Not a very original plan, but we know it'll work.
That's all we've got for you this week. We hope you enjoyed this episode of What Makes Gaming Great, and we thank you so much for watching. As always, check out our Instagram accounts, which are in the description, and make sure to like and subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Join us next week for episode 5 as we take a look at another spin-off game, Halo 3 ODST. Stay safe, everyone. Love yourself and others. Dylan out.